I think a lot of us have very ambiguous goals, and if we can't isolate like where we want to go, we're not going to really know how to get there.
And this is all going to make a difference, right? Because if you just start following a random PDF from ChatGPT or like your favorite bodybuilder and it just doesn't make any sense, it's going to be so demotivating.
This is your opportunity to really learn how to fit it into your life and to learn how to have a fit, healthy, and balanced life. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and most of all, Happy podcast. I'm your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm in the house.
And this is going to be a fun episode. I'm going to be talking about the 90-day reset. So what I would do if I had to start over. This is also what I do for all of my paying clients. I want to let you behind the scenes of what I do when I take someone on and how I get them into shape rapidly to get them 5 times faster results. So let's jump right into it. So first and foremost, establishing your goal is the most pivotal part of how to start a journey. So even for yourself right now, you might be like, oh, I want a little more muscle in my legs. I want to lose some fat, but not too much fat. I want to keep right. So I think a lot of us have very ambiguous goals. And if we can't isolate like where we want to go, we're not going to really know how to get there. It's like if you want to get in a direction, you don't punch it into maps, you're kind of just cruising around. It's not going to work out. So as a coach, I always like to look at like if Kyle signed up, I'd look at his physique, I'd look at his photos, I'd get him to tell me what his goals are, and I'd ask questions to try to pry a little bit more. Because if he goes, hey man, like I want to stack on some muscle, but I don't want to gain any fat, right? Like we're going to have to read between those lines and really understand like what does that mean for him? Because if he just jumps into a big cut and subconsciously he feels like he's getting smaller, he may self-sabotage. If he jumps into a big bulk, but he doesn't want to put it on any fat, that's not going to be good either. So I think the more you can isolate what you want, you can isolate what your strengths are, what's immediately in front of you. Like this is the big starting position. And for most people, it will be losing fat. The scale and intensity of how you do that will differ for everyone. But if you want to lose fat and you just like to make it quite simple, we literally have an ebook we made on this, exactly how to lose fat. I don't want to spend too much time on fat loss here, exactly how to do it, exactly how to make that happen. So I'm going to give that totally free. That's going to be the first link in this episode. So if you want to grab that, I highly recommend doing that. But for most people, you've come in, you set your goals. It's also really important you start with your starting data because progress is something that is hard to identify for ourselves when we look in the mirror. And it can be discouraging if you can't see it or quantify it. That's why I really recommend when my clients come in, I have them send me physique photos, I have them take their measurements, and I also look at their starting weight as well as their starting macros. And I get a really good understanding of where they are so we can revisit this monthly and make sure we're actually moving forward. And what's awesome is sometimes it'll be like, I feel like I haven't changed. And then we'll look and we'll be like, look at these 2 photos. These are 2 different people essentially. And you've lost 5 inches off your waist. You've gained muscle on your quads. Like things are moving exactly how we want them to move. So it's really important you have that baseline. Next up is tracking food. No matter what your goals are, even if you're already tracking food, it's tracking food with a high level of accuracy. So it's really essential you create a baseline. So one thing I like to do, if I was starting over as well, as I would get back to tracking, create that baseline and aim to improve my accuracy. And keep in mind with tracking food initially, where people go wrong, I think, is they just jump into a cut. They'll go on some macro calculator and they'll just get some random number and they'll either end up eating way too much or way too little. So if you're just starting out, I recommend eating and listening to your body and tracking that. So instead of eating till you're hungry, instead of eating till you're full, I highly recommend eating till you're satisfied because this is going to be our baseline. This is going to be your maintenance. And then we can actually see throughout the week what that looks like. If one day is 2,400, one day is 2,700, one day is 2,500, one day is 2,600, right there, we can see our average is dead in the middle of that and we can know that's our maintenance. And then after that, after this initial phase, that's going to give us a baseline to manipulate that number to actually make sure we are in a deficit.
I'm so glad Josh mentioned all that because I talk to a lot of people who are consistently struggling, and I'd say 2 of the biggest common mistakes is that they don't have a proper goal, and then along the way, they don't have proper tools in terms of like actually what's going on. And what I mean by that is calorie intake. There's just like no information. And it's so hard to know if you're making change if you don't have a proper, specific, SMART goal, which is just specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And then also if you're just going about this journey and you don't know what your weight is, if you don't know your measurements, if you've never taken progress photos, how do you expect to succeed, right? And so a lot of people end up struggling within that. And I just can't stress enough how important this is, especially when we have new clients. We put a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure we have a perfect spreadsheet, to make sure that we get all of the starting information and that we have very specific goals. And a lot of times we'll go back and forth. We'll make sure, hey, so what is it exactly that you're looking to accomplish? How exactly do you want to feel 90 days from now? What outfit are you looking to, fit into? Like these specifics help so much, and it helps us as a coach be able to make sure to hold you accountable. And even one thing I've noticed over the years is that sometimes people will start with an initial goal, and as we go along the journey, we'll be able to make changes based off of what they previously wanted. Because it was going so well, we'll make those adjustments. But next up is just simply putting together the most perfect workout routine and cardio protocols. So I'm telling you when I say this, when we see the photos, when we get the intake form, when we get the measurements, and also just the goals, we can put together the most perfect routine for you. And so much goes into that, between the amount of days that you can work out. And this is all going to make a difference, right? Because if you just start following a random PDF from ChatGPT or like your favorite bodybuilder and it just doesn't make any sense, it's going to be so demotivating. But we take in past workout history, any restrictions, any exercises you can't do, the amount of time you have in the gym as well, the amount of days that you can work out, your favorite exercises, your least favorite exercises, like everything gets taken into consideration. And even just when it comes down to it, the right equipment. So obviously make sure that you have all the right equipment and it's fully customized based off of what you actually need. And this is what's going to make you have the best results possible. And alone, like many people either follow a one size fits all program or no program at all, and they're wondering why they're struggling. But even additionally, obviously, when it comes down to it, you've already done the hard stuff, which is tracking your food, which Coach Josh mentioned. But we also have to make sure that we're moving enough. And so on top of that, we'll make sure that you have the most perfect cardio protocol based off of what you actually need. And when it comes down to it, we like to simply set it in terms of just having a certain amount of sessions per week. And usually I'll give you a calorie goal for each session. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do because every single person's different in order to help them get into a deficit or even maybe a surplus, depending on what they're striving for. But we're going to break it down into, let's say, 5 by 100 calorie sessions of cardio. And a lot of people will just kind of overcomplicate it, thinking they need a specific machine for cardio or something like that. But I find that just allowing my client and allowing you to just make the decision based off of what actually makes sense for you and what you can comfortably do and fit in, this alone makes such a big difference. And then lastly here, one thing I've been adding in for my clients and myself as well, I've loved seeing the step component. Because if someone, and recently I had to, look into it a bit more, one of my clients was having, literally a couple thousand steps. I'm like, okay, we need to make this adjustment. Like this can't keep going. So we started to increase the step goal. We started to get out for more walks. And this is just an extra layer that helps you get into a bigger deficit and make sure that you're moving more. And if you're moving more and eating less and your goal is fat loss, oh man, you're going to just do some incredible things. So that's pretty much how we'd go about this journey.
Yeah, so it's all about like getting your starting game plan. You have to understand this will be adjusted. And for us as well, as Kyle mentioned, everyone's so different. So I need to know what factors to pull. If you're looking to lose fat, essentially you need to burn more calories than you eat. And that doesn't mean you need to do it actively. Like, of course, your body burns most of its calories just existing through non-exercise activity thermogenesis. But what you can do is you can eat more food if you do more movement. And it's not saying you should go do crazy cardio protocols, but I have some clients and I'll look and like if they're a mailman, they're going to be doing 25,000 steps a day. I don't really need to program additional cardio for them. It's not that beneficial. Like it's just more effective because it's just going to have more of a pull and a takeaway from their workout. And it's just going to be more exercise than they need. It's not going to be motivational for that individual. And that's where like cookie cutter routines just suck because everyone's so different. But if you're extremely sedentary, you might be able to eat more food than you did previously. If you just start going on 2 walks a day, being intentional with that, doing some set cardio sessions, like that can actually just improve so much. Like, cause some people just sit, like lawyers will just sit and like do 1,000 steps a day. They'll take an Uber to and from work and that's it. Like right away, you're going to see such a change driving that up and pulling that lever. For other people, it's giving them more food. They're not eating enough for their body. For some other people, it's giving them less food. And that's why this first week to 2 weeks is about a baseline and it's about habit creation. Because if we're starting over here and we want to see change, where people go wrong is they just like turbo into everything. They go, I'm going to do 15,000 steps. I'm going to work out 2 hours a day for 5 weeks. I'm going to starve myself. Like naturally it's designed to fail, and that's a horrible way to fail. And I think that's how most people start. So that's where I actually like to start slow with my clients. I like them to build the habits, getting into tracking. I like them to get into the gym and the routine. And like Kyle said, with the routine, it's so important that your routine builds on to your goal. So if you've previously been working out, it's like, can we look at strategically how much volume we're doing? Can we look at the split we're doing? Are we utilizing high level tools like daily underlying periodization and just progressive overload, just all the tools that are available for us, or even time frames? Like if we have a tighter time frame, can we utilize more supersets, cluster sets, 21s, like different tools to add intensity for duration? And if you have a ton of time to be in there, we have a lot of play and a lot of opportunity. But that's where, even for you, like if you're starting fresh, like you need to start to look at these things, and none of these things are set in stone. And that's why usually with new clients, I'll do adjustments like bi-weekly, but eventually when everyone's set, I like to do a weekly change because it gives it some time to stick. So that's like the initial phase, right? We're creating these habits. And like I said, there will be friction. If you didn't go to the gym, there's going to be friction. If you're getting in the gym, if you never track your food, there's going to be friction. You're going to have to learn how to do that when you go out. It's going to be a little uncomfortable. You're going to save your preset foods. But what's nice after that, we can get into the precision phase. So if you've been eating to satiety, we see your weight stayed consistent, and you've been eating that 25, 50 calories that we talked about earlier, I can then say, okay, we want to be in a deficit. We want to lose 10 pounds over the next 10 weeks. We're going to start with this much of a cut. And I could, like, let's say usually you want to cut about like 10 to 30% of your calories to start. Obviously, it depends heavily on the individual and your starting point. So that's a very general number. But if I start less aggressively and I only do 10%, but Kyle ends up, my client in this case, he ends up losing 5 pounds a week. Like, we know, like, okay, like we can adjust that number. That wouldn't really math out if we establish a maintenance, but you can see how it's all pulling levers and adjusting as necessary to make sure it's supporting your goal. Because 10 pounds in 10 weeks should be a pound a week. And you can adjust these levers with cardio. You can adjust it with less food. You can adjust it with food quality. You can adjust it with macronutrient optimization, obviously, because you want to be working towards a gram of protein per body weight. And like, I know it sounds a little complex, but like, to dumb it down, you're establishing that baseline with nutrition, you're understanding your calories, you're getting in a gym routine, and you're controlling for your cardio. And once all that's done, you can get into that precision phase. Like I said, you can begin that cut, you can begin that bulk. Also in this time, you can find holes and encounter problems and find solutions to them. Going out to your first dinner, you might mess up. And this is where people on those extreme diets will throw everything away. Instead, for you, you're going to say, okay, I took one step back. How can I take 2 steps forward? How can I learn? Maybe next time I'm going to pre-log the foods for the restaurant. I'm going to have more protein and vegetables before, so I can have more freedom to enjoy what I want. I can enjoy that intentional day at the expense of maybe a week of my cut, but I'm okay with that because this week I have 3 friends' birthdays, so I need to move with that. So that's where you can begin to like start to establish these things. In this time as well, this is where you want to improve your just expertise of everything. So maybe you've been logging, but you haven't been logging well. Here's where you can introduce a food scale and measuring cups. You can add more weight in the gym. We could begin to scale up cardio if we notice weight plateauing. So this is where, like, I don't think it's so important not to start overly intensive, and instead to bridge into that and to utilize this time to naturally improve week after week.
Yeah, and this part is, I love that. This is my favorite part because this is the part where you've been consistent enough. You've shown yourself that you have what it takes. You've established that routine. Like, you've done everything. You've done the hard work. Like, the truth is, obviously, this phase is very hard. But even going back to that first initial friction period that I mentioned, like, it can be a little bit frustrating sometimes because, you know, you will have to sit down, and when you put in more work in the very front end, it makes it so much easier in the back end. So I even think of, like, when we hire someone, the first part is so challenging. You have to find the right person, you have to train them, you have to evaluate things, you have to do all the right stuff. And then long term, it just ends up becoming second nature. It's just like easier. It's like, hey, we know what we need to do. And so even like going back to that first initial part, like I remember when I first tried to log, it took me a long time to get used to it. When I try to goal set, I have to spend like an hour to like really get a deep goal. And then like this next part, it's kind of like you're just getting better. Like you're like, hey, I've been logging for a couple weeks. Now let's do it better. I've been going to the gym, like my records say, check mark, check mark, check mark, 5 days a week or 3 days a week or whatever it is that you have prescribed for you. Now let's do it better. And to me, this is like the really fun part. And I love when I get to see clients that are in this phase where it's just like, hey, we've got the habit development. You can tell this is going to be something that's going to stick. Now let's just continuously do it better. So just wanted to add that on.
Yeah, and this is a really fun phase because strength is going to be coming on quick. Weight's going to melt off quick. This is like the easy mode part of it because you've created that habit, you've been consistent with it, and you've seen results. But as you push more into the mastery phase, this gets where it gets more funky. When you get deeper in your cut, this is where you need to use more high level strategy to break through plateaus. You need to reevaluate goals. You need to utilize data like your measurements and your photos and say, hey, like, is this routine supporting what I want? Because I think when people self-prescribe routines, they'll over-program areas they like, and they may actually overdevelop areas that were already dominant, and they'll have things that are underdeveloped, and then that'll create issues for them. And that's where they're going to get imbalances, or they'll get hurt in the gym, or whatever it may be. So you want to always be looking at these things. Like even for me, if I'm trying to bring up a client's glutes and shoulders, and their glutes and shoulders aren't improving, and like their back's getting bigger, their quads are getting bigger, we need to revisit that, and we need to like look at the form videos, and we need to just continue to readjust and game plan and pull different levers, because these are all tools at our disposal. And the more accurate and consistent we can be with everything, the more we can have control to change it. And you'll notice it gets quite easy. And as you get more towards mastery and you've proven you can do it, it's really important you don't blow up your results. I think this is where people will get frustrated, because you'll lose your 8 pounds if we're trying to get to that 10-pound goal, and weight will stall for a week. It'll stall for another week despite you changing. This is where people can get in their head and get really frustrated, even though it's a tiny thing. Being patient as well, like with the scale in particular, you can get big whooshes, right? You can have like a bowel movement withheld. You can end up eating salt later in the night. Like there can be so many factors here. And sometimes by being patient, you'll see like that 3-4 pound drop after patience, whereas some other people get so frustrated, their scale will pop up a couple times. And that's why we look at averages, not one-off weigh-ins, because they'll get frustrated and then they'll blow up their own results. Like oftentimes we are the enemy to our own results the most, where we'll get frustrated. We'll say, I've done so good. I'm not going to worry about it this week, and they'll undo everything. Like this is your opportunity to really learn how to fit it into your life and to learn how to have a fit, healthy, and balanced life. Because when you restart like this, and like, let's say you pull off that 10 pounds of fat, you're happy where you are, you can reverse diet out of it. You can build more into the gym, the intensity there. You could taper off cardio at the end of the cut. You could dig deeper into the cut. Like it really just becomes your opportunity to adjust and make sure your results are successful. So I think this is such a big thing. And like, this is the essence of what we do as coaches. Obviously, as you can see, like I'd love just to tell you, do this, do this, do this, do this. But everyone, as Kyle said, is so different. And that's where it's really important you pay attention to the nuances of your own journey. Also, I see a common thing where people have like this underlying desire to self-sabotage or not let themselves succeed. Maybe you've always been like a little bit heavier, and you start to begin looking good. You start to be having a lot of success, and like that voice in your ear is saying you're not fit. You're not meant to like have your dream body, and it'll be like the chips are right there. You and it'll want you to go back to those old habits. So that's where you have to create this new identity and this new character. And what's so nice is when you get through that too, like you can do things like a reverse diet, and oftentimes you can be like 20 pounds leaner, and you can actually be eating the same calories you were before, feeling better, having more muscle, sleeping better. Like it's awesome, the payoff, right? And I think too many people get too focused in on the cut. So if I were to restart, like this would be the exact way I go about it. This is the exact way I go about it with my clients. If you want us to do the hard work for you and you want to learn how to do it, we're more than happy to. And myself and Kyle just love this. I love problem solving and helping people realize that this doesn't need to be difficult to get you out of your own way, to get you on the best routine so you can see way faster results, to teach you how you can melt off fat easily while eating whatever you want with no restriction. Like these are the things I love. So that second link will be the link to our website. You can learn more about what we do. The first one will give you a really clear and obvious way into fat loss. But anything else you want to add?
I was just going to say, even near the ending, kind of like, first of all, habits and whatnot, they take like, at least 30 days to build. So like when you go through that hard phase, when you develop those habits and you just like consistently show up, every part of your life can like simply be improved for the rest of your life. You go through that initial phase, high friction, you go through the adjustment period. Even to this day, every single week when I do a client check-in, I will find one thing that I can change. And that's what's so important, is that a lot of times people end up becoming complacent. They end up just following something and say, oh, I'm good to do this thing for the rest of my life. But that's kind of an easy way to just die, right? They say evolve or die. And when we're finding different things to tweak, different ways to increase volume, different ways to put new exercises in, and just keep the core of everything the same, but just add in different things. It makes such a big difference. And even in this last like mastery phase, I had a client check in, and Riley, she had said to me, she said, "Hey, now that it's February, like, and the New Year's rush is kind of like it's died down. Like now I'm relying on discipline." And so obviously she has really big goals set with that. But I think it's so important that you do evaluate your goals consistently and throughout the phases and throughout like your different periods where you get a little bit comfortable. And as you keep doing it, like, hey, what do I actually want? And then in this last phase, when you find your deep why and it means a lot to you, like it makes such a big difference, because in that first phase where you're just like excited and you're starting to see the scale go down and you're getting all these great wins, it'll be a little bit different like long term. And when you can evaluate and say, hey, I want to be strong for life, hey, I want to be there for my grandkids, and when you start to evaluate that stuff, it's what's going to help you stay accountable and stay on track. So that's the last thing I just want to add there.
Yeah, and it's fun because it puts you in the driver's seat. Like we're still in that phase, me and Kyle. We're constantly making adjustments. We're constantly game planning and improving. And it's just so nice when you feel very in control of it. And I think that's where most people will rely on quick gimmicks and not feel in control whatsoever. So you'll notice I didn't talk about supplements. Rarely, if ever, will I program supplements. Occasionally, I'll recommend creatine to a client. But like these major movers and the boring things here, like being consistent, improving the core fundamentals of your routine, like that's how we have so many amazing transformations on our page. And that's a big tenet of our actual podcast here and our program, of course. But like we get opportunities every day where people want to give us a bunch of money to push a supplement or push some nonsense to you guys. And obviously you trust us and we would never manipulate that. But even just from its core, like it's boring saying, hey, do these things well, but it's what works. So you need to stop looking for supplements or some magic exercise or some magic machine or something. I don't know what it is that people are looking for, but when you can learn to correct this as well, you can enjoy life. You can eat healthy, you can go out, you can have fun foods, you can have dessert, you can have a reasonable amount of time in the gym without fitness dominating your life. Like it doesn't need to be compulsive whatsoever. It's just about working towards these things and also adapting and understanding you will fail. There'll be times you fall down, there'll be times you fall off, but you just need to get right back to it. And I love adages like never miss twice, creating discipline so you don't need to rely on motivation, and most important, support. Because within all of this, right, like I know it seems complicated, but it really doesn't need to be. My goal as your coach is to make this as easy as possible for you. So it's just as simple, like you're following a map of how to succeed. Like it doesn't need to be complicated, but when you get in your own head, you can overreact to plateau weeks. You can overreact to bad days. You can overreact to small injuries, right? So it's really important you keep perspective in mind with your journey. And that's where I love helping people with this and just speeding up the results, because I'll get people similar to me, like younger guys, I guess, and I'll get them in here and I'll get them results in like 3 to 6 months that took me like 3 years because I did things dumb and wasted a lot of time and injuries that existed. And so just being smart about it, doing these things is so essential. So I know this was a little more technical, but I hope you enjoyed it. Like we're very happy to showcase what we do and show behind the curtain and give you guys no BS, straightforward advice. So we're really happy to do that. And we want to thank you for tuning in. Once again, free fat loss guide. You can go ahead and grab that first link. Second link, you can learn more about our coaching. Check out our website. So thanks for tuning in with us today. Peace out.